Welcome to Cultural Quarter of an Hour with me, Charlotte Foster. This is a podcast all about Stoke-on-Trent and North Staffordshire. We are unashamedly positive about the area and we unashamedly sing this area's praises. We do this by looking at the area's culture. Now, this can be anything from events that are taking place, history of the area, but most importantly, it is the people. Welcome to this week's episode of Cultural Quarter of an Hour. You'll hear from the vast echoes in the interview coming up that I've been back to Spode. Again, not talking about BCB. I promise you, I am absolutely not ignoring BCB in any way, shape or form. It's just I've been using the BCB as a great way to just sort of say to people, oh, should we meet here and have a chat here, or should we have it as a bit of a social hangout? I will do some proper work from BCB very soon before it finishes for another 2 years. But today's episode is all about, now if you're on social media, you may or may not have seen a hashtag My Stoke Story, and you might have taken part in a hashtag. So I thought I'd need to find out a little bit more about the hashtag and what it actually means. So I've been speaking to Paul Williams, who is the chair of Stoke-on-Trent Cultural Destinations, the people behind the hashtag. We were just saying then, it was 2017 the last time you came on the podcast. I think you were episode 3 or 4, very, very early doors, where we were standing in Middleport in the rain, as it was. Now we're in a different pottery, or former pottery, different sort of year, 2019. What are we doing here? We're at Spode. Should we just clarify that? That's why it's going to be very echoey.
We're not just at Spode, we're in the wonderful, iconic, atmospheric Spode China Halls. You know, and people across the city, every time they walk in this place, they just go, wow. You know, how has this been, you know, avoiding me, missing me? How's it escaped me? And now we're giving them opportunities to come back and be part of this wonderful heritage building that's here in the town of Stoke, in the good old city of Stoke-on-Trent.
We are surrounded by ceramics because the British Ceramics Bicentennial is taking place at the moment, but that's not what we're here for. We're here because we love being here. But you're going to tell me about My Stoke Story.
Yes, I am. And in some ways, there's a good reason for being here. My Stoke Story, just to give you a little bit of context, is part of the Stoke-on-Trent Cultural Destinations project. And Cultural Destinations is a 3-year funded project, funded by the Arts Council and Visit England. And one of the things that they're trying to do is to get arts and cultural organisations and the tourism sector working better together. You know, it stands to reason if we put on some great events and some great festivals like the British Ceramics Biennial here at Spode, we want people to come and have a look at what we're doing. We want visitors to come and enjoy the offer and to experience the event, whatever that might be. So Visit England and Arts Council realise if they can work together and bring in the expertise and the marketing skills and the sort of the social media know-how that tourism organisations have been renowned for, and we can apply that to the cultural and arts organisations, they become more resilient. They reach out to a wider audience, a different audience, but ultimately they bring more visitors into their events. So that's what Cultural Destinations is all about, and we're very lucky to be awarded funding for this 3-year project. From the early days, we thought, you know, there's a lot in Stoke. And £300,000, I know it sounds a lot, but it doesn't buy you a lot of new product. We don't really need a lot of new product. We just need to shout about and celebrate and share and showcase the wonderful assets and attractions and events and festivals and projects that are going on day in, day out here in Stoke-on-Trent. So we thought about the campaigns that we wanted to align to that. Last year's campaign was Summer in Stoke. And that was a season-long campaign that finished around the poppies up at Middleport. It gave us a natural point at which to focus all of our attention and then get towards the time when the poppies were installed at Middleport and really celebrate the Summer in Stoke campaign. We then started to think about what was this campaign going to look like? How could it build on Summer in Stoke? And then we it became very obvious that there are lots of celebrations and anniversaries and treasures, so we can talk about the 15-year anniversary of Trentham Gardens coming back as an attraction. We can talk about 5 years since Middleport became the attraction that it is now and that we all love. We can talk about a decade of celebrating ceramics, the 6th biennial, but it's a decade of celebrations. So there are these big celebrations, and there are other celebrations that are going on. So we thought, why don't we actually use those as the focal point for what we're trying to do and to get people to share stories? You have your stories when you visit some of the places around here in Stoke, Charlotte. And every visitor and every resident, they will have their stories. And what we're trying to do is to get them to share those stories. And in sharing those stories, then they get to put Stoke-on-Trent and its cultural offer in the spotlight. And if we can shine a spotlight on some of the events that we have and some of the attractions that we have, hopefully we can start to change the narrative. You mentioned at the outset that when you and I first had a conversation as part of this podcast, it was around the City of Culture bidding process. And one of the things that we committed to when we were bidding for City of Culture is we had to change people's perceptions of Stoke. We had to change the narrative and change the story. But actually, the best people to change the story are people like you and our visitors to the biennial here. And if they can, get on board and they can be part of just connecting in a way that I'll never understand and you'll never understand, but when they put that in the context of a story, it personalises it, it gives it a different meaning, and then we can use that to get some sort of further promotion along the way. So my Stoke Story, in a nutshell, is a large-scale public engagement campaign. It won't work unless people get on board. What we're also doing, of course, is putting some micro-campaigns in place. We've done a lot of research as part of Cultural Destinations. We've worked with an organisation called the Audience Agency. And without getting too technical, they've identified a number of market segments that we really need to be starting to target, because we know that they're the sort of people that like what we've got here in Stoke-on-Trent. And they give them fancy names, Commuterland culture buffs, or trips and treats, or experience seekers. But they're the markets that we're really trying to target and bring more visitors in to help celebrate and share the stories that we've just been talking about. So we've got micro campaigns planned throughout the year, which will use the My Stoke Story campaign and use that to sort of focus what we want to do, so we know that we can really bring people in for a particular reason and then carry on with the campaign more widely. We talked about it being a campaign, and we talked about people getting on board. So how can they get on board? Well, it's a social media driven campaign in many respects. So it's quite simple. If you're going to visit the Potteries Museum and Art Gallery, if you're going to visit Trentham or Wedgwood or Middleport, or you're going to visit Emma Bridgewater, or you're coming down here to the BCB at Spode, all you need to do is to, yes, take some wonderful photos, because they're great photo opportunities, and put it in the context of some sort of story and share it on social media using the hashtag #MyStokeStory. Couldn't be simpler.
What have you been seeing so far from people who are using that hashtag?
We've been seeing quite a lot of interesting things, and things that, again, we possibly didn't realise at the time. So one of the celebrations that I didn't mention was a 10-year anniversary since the Staffordshire Hoard was unearthed. And when we're starting to get people to understand what this campaign was all about, we suddenly realised that when that call out came 10 years ago for people to help fund the purchase of the Staffordshire Hoard so we can enjoy it in the way that we are doing today, there was one little boy, and I think he may have been about 7 or 8 years of age, who at the time, first of all, spent his pocket money on helping to purchase the hoard, but went out doing car washes and using the money to go into the hoard fund. And that story came out whilst we've been celebrating the Staffordshire Hoard. So, a great celebration, a festival of events throughout July in the Potteries Museum, all linked to the Staffordshire Hoard, and a little boy sort of thinking about what it meant to him 10 years ago. And again, that's an important part of the messaging. People have probably been to some of these wonderful attractions that we have in the city, but they may not have been back for a while. And actually, when they go back and they look through a different lens and they see the change that's happened over a period of time, hopefully it reinforces that Stoke is on the up, that there is investment in the city, that we have really strengthened the cultural tourism offer, and we've really got some great things for people to come and have a look at here in the city. And if we can get, visitors and, people who have just stopped coming for whatever reason to come and have another look and then share their story, hopefully we can motivate other people to do so as well.
How important is it that when you say it's my Stoke story, it's people who live in the city or in the surrounds, and also people who've travelled from further afield, that they have their own Stoke story as well?
They do, and again, we're trying to. We talked about the targeting campaign with some of those people that live in the Drive catchment area, and we know that they are equally important in changing the narrative. We know what we need to do to sort of get people to look at Stoke in a different way and in a more positive way, but it's those people who come in and go out and become ambassadors for us. So talking about ambassadors, one of the things that we also did and are continuing to do is we identified a number of national influencers and vloggers and bloggers and asked them to come along and be ambassadors for us. So we gave them a reason to come. When the butterflies, the Donna Louise ceramic butterflies was first unveiled at Trentham Gardens, we had some ambassadors that we asked to come along to be part of the launch event and then start to tell the story. It helps Trentham, it helps the Donna Louise, and it helps get the My Stoke story messaging out there. And these influencers, of course, they're very well connected, they're well networked, they each help each other, and they're part of getting that story out. But it's all very well bringing ambassadors into the city to be part of the storytelling. We also know that there's some great storytellers in the city. So we sort of sent a message out and asked, was anybody interested in being part of the blogging? Anybody interested because they had a story that they wanted us to try and help them to share? And a number of people came forward, and they are now ambassadors for Stoke. And you'll see their blogs, across the social media platforms, and they keep coming back. And one of the things we're now trying to do is there's big key messages somewhere in the blog that when you're reading it, yes, it feels great and you think, my goodness, what a great city we have. But if we lift those messages out and then we start to aggregate them, we sort of have a campaign in itself. And that's the next stage of what we're going to be doing with My Stoke Story. So it's residents, it's visitors, it's influencers, it's people like you, and it's me, and it's everybody at every opportunity shouting about the great assets that we have here in the city.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. Hope you enjoyed it. As always, get in touch with me in the usual ways at CQH Pod on Twitter, Cultural Quarter Hour on Facebook. And just to let you know, the website, CQH Pod, that is closing down at the end of November. Let's be honest, I have not kept it up. I have so much else going on that it's just not happened. So cqhpod.co.uk is disappearing at the end of November. So hopefully, or end of October, beginning of November. So hopefully it means I can do more stuff on social media, on Facebook and on Twitter. Just to let you know. As always, back next Wednesday.